Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to a StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm replay cast. We've got a Terran versus Protoss matchup coming for you here today. Up at the top left-hand side, I'm going to have to intro really quickly our players because the fun has already begun. Up at the top left-hand side as our Red Terran. No team at the moment, so unfortunately I wasn't really able to find out too much about this guy. It is Mind. And our blue Protoss down at the bottom right-hand side, who's random Protoss, of course. However, normally he plays Protoss. If you're from the C region, you'll know this guy. It is Probe. And while we're quickly having a look at the hilarity that is now marching its way across the map, of course, I'll introduce my co-caster for this game. That's right, I actually have a co-caster for once. It is none other than Omerta, who normally joins me every now and then for some casting on Sundays for our Masters Cup. How you doing?
How you doing, man? Well, it looks like Probe has decided that Protoss is so imbalanced that he shouldn't waste any time in trying to win the game. So he's sending his first 6 probes across the map
it's
here.
Legit strat. I mean, you know, there's what 11 SCVs there. I'm sure he'll be fine with those six probes. But yeah, from what I was told, Probe was tilting a little bit before this game, as I'm sure everybody can imagine, and he's just doing his best to try and have a little bit of fun here, I think. But worker rushes, as a Protoss, it's pretty good. You can always just regen, and I mean, it's pretty imba, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, that supply depot has taken 12 damage. I mean,
that's huge.
I would call that a success, right?
Well, I mean, back at home, he's able to. Well, normally you would be chrono boosting, but Probe's taken this to a next level. He's not even chrono boosting workers back at home because, you know, why bother? Because he sort of expects that these probes are going to win the game right here. But he's sort of dancing in and out. And I mean, this is the funny thing about these kind of worker rushes. If you could like occupy the Terran for a little bit, then it's all good. I think that Mind is kind of overcommitted. You don't need to bring every single SCV to try and kill off what? How many probes is it? 5. You don't need to bring. Yeah. You could probably bring equal amount of SCVs at this point because the SCVs do have more health, and despite the probes regenning their shields, it's it's not. You don't need to bring everybody out to play.
Yeah, even worst case scenario, like, I think if he pulls 8 SCVs, he can just chase those around forever and still mine.
Yeah.
You know? But, I mean, who says that StarCraft 2 is a dead game, Duckville? I mean, look at this action. We've got action from the very start. It's dead game? Who says dead game? Come on.
Where do you have a dead game when someone has 100 chrono boost, has 100 energy left at home, and still has 5 workers up and running while continually occupying his opponent with these workers across the other side of the map? And you know, would you advise this on a map like Frost, perhaps? A little bit of an awesome strat for there as well.
Well, yeah, because then you have the added excitement of hoping you find your opponent with your first 6 probes, right? Whereas, you know, this map, you know exactly where the Terran's going to be. That's a little less exciting.
Yeah, there's not as much challenge in that, I guess. The probe,
nice
that's around almost getting caught out there. But Mineral Walks is workers through. Probes get Mineral Walked out of there. And guys, I'm not even kidding. If you're not from the C region and you don't know who Probe is, that's actually his name. I'm not just saying that for fun. That's actually his normal alias. But now we get to the fun part of this, where we look at what's going on. And I mean, Probe's got five workers that are still here harassing his opponent and forcing mine off the mineral patches. And he's only just completed his racks. And back at home for Probe, he's got a nice amount of workers. He's started to finally remember what chrono boost is, as some Protoss players do sometimes. And he's actually now in the lead of the workers, so it's Protoss pretty good.
Well, we got to keep in mind, he's got, what, 5 over there? So he's got 12 mining to 15 mining.
True.
So he's not exactly ahead, but now we have a Marine out, so these probes are in serious trouble.
Marines are.
Yeah, like these are 2 Master League players, right? So neither of these guys are bad at the game. No. And I'm just like, the early game has been chaotic. Like, I'm excited to see how both of them react. Like, honestly, I'm kind of surprised that mine didn't, like, grab a gas immediately and go for a Reaper, because I feel like if he had a Reaper coming out in the next 30 seconds or so, that would kind of just, like, almost immediately win him the game, or at least cause Probe, like, so much distraction that Like, I don't know how he would come back from it, but it looks like he is sending those first 5 hero probes back to the base, and it's like kind of normal. I mean, this game is pretty normal, and we even see a full supply depot wall, so Mind is like terrified of what could possibly come his way after that probe rush.
He could have proxied a Nexus and then just made more probes closer to his base, and then could be doing a secondary probe rush. It's like bit by bit the Protoss style. That's what we could be seeing right here. But yeah, probe back at home now. He's got all of his workers onto the minerals and the gas. He's got his Cyber now complete. Our first Zealot's going to pop out, perhaps a little bit worried about that Reaper threat or something like that. As you said, I think it's kind of interesting that Mine did not grab the gas so early. And I mean, I'm not even sure that Zealot is needed. In fact, did he just cancel it? He did. Okay, cool. There you go. Even recognizing, well, without gas, you're not going to have a Reaper, which means that there's not really too much threat coming across. So, Probe's just going to go up to Stargate. And I mean, Stargate's got pretty good units in it, doesn't it?
I think so. I mean, Oracle will be strong. Like, the double gas here from Mind is really crazy. You do see is getting a factory in a second barracks, so I guess he's trying to all in off. I mean, it's apparent from the start of this game. He just like didn't know what he wanted to do, right? He was chasing probes around with literally all of his SCVs. He's terrified, even in engineering bay, so I guess he's scared of Dark Templar or potential Oracle coming in, so and it is actually an Oracle out of probe here, so
he's just scouting. He actually just scouted
this game's
out
weird.
Stargate, so yeah. It's,
oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah, there was an
Yeah, I
SCV
missed
that
that.
popped through, but it's yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny, as you said. He's grabbed the second gas, and now it's kind of in a situation where it's like, well, you needed that gas before, but you don't need as much now unless you're going to do something super crazy. And this the first Oracle that'll come out should be able to scout out what's happening. And speaking of which, the Oracle now speeding its way across the map with that ridiculous speed that it has for some unknown reason. And our Marines will be sort of sitting in there waiting for something to happen, but the Oracle, still just a moment out, is going to be coming through. The Marines just sort of patrolling inside. They know something is coming across, and Orb flies into a wall but doesn't really get too much done.
Ooh, yeah, Oracle took a lot of damage there. I like the Stalker poke too. He just like wanted to poke up there, see if there was an expansion. Saw the bunker at the top of the ramp, so that definitely means there's some kind of tech going on, right? Like,
Yeah.
if there were an expansion, well, I guess he could have put an expansion in the main, but he's gonna assume that there's some sort of tech going on there. So he will be able to scout it out, and he even saw it with the Oracle. You know, he saw everything. He saw the starport, saw the factory, saw the barracks with the reactor. So yeah, interested to see how it plays out here.
I think we do have, it looks, well, the medevac kind of changes things, but I was going to say, it does look very reminiscent of good old Puma. Remember Puma back in the day, how he won games and won nothing else. The old 1-1-1. Something looks very similar to the way that was done back in the day, but mine's going to sit across this medevac and see if he can perhaps get a little bit of action going on across his opponent's side of the map. But even this Oracle could really do some damage to the Marines as they start to pop out, but Mine recognises that and just drops a few of those Marines out to distract the Oracle. One sentry inside the main is going to be enough to hold off all those Marines, apparently. Sentries are pretty strong.
Yeah, and we see a siege tank and a second bunker even going down for Mine, which he immediately salvages upon completion there. We do see a Raven, so yeah, this is looking like a really old school 1-1-1 here coming out of Mine, which, you know, when I used to play Protoss back in Wings of Liberty, I absolutely despised this build, but I think that Probe's in a good position to defend it. If he can scout, there's no expansion. Like, he should fly this Phoenix or his Oracle up there to check for the expansion as the drop goes down here in the natural, and Photon Arc overcharge clean that up pretty easily. But he's on 2 base economy right now, so if he just throws down a bunch of gateways or anything, if he just starts making a ton of units right now, then he'll be fine against any attack that comes, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about doing these kind of, because we do have a Raven out, and yeah, there are going to be a lot of Marines as continual tank production. The thing about these kinds of pushes, it's no longer that they will be ridiculously hard to stop like they were back in Wings of Liberty. It's more so that because you have a lot of tools available, especially with the Photon Overcharge, to beat them, as long as you scout it coming, then you should be, you really shouldn't lose against this kind of thing. And yeah, Probe has now scouted it coming across the Phoenix. We're able to see the train on the way, and we are getting a good old Wings of Liberty display from Mind as he starts to march his way across. Marines and tanks and SCVs all coming through. Meanwhile, back at home, leaves a few of his workers, so he's not necessarily down and out if this fails, but it does put him in a pretty terrible position, and that's actually a really cool idea there from Probe to take out the rocks.
Yep. Yeah, it's really important actually. It's going to slow his push down a lot, so he's going to have time. He doesn't have a lot of production. His couple of gateways are finishing up right now. Yeah, it looks like 3 more just finished up, so that'll help. He needs to try and buy time for 2 warp-in cycles, I feel like, and those force fields will help. Cuts off a couple of units there. And the Phoenixes actually do take out a Banshee, so that's really good for him. Oh my god, are they going to get that Raven too? Yeah, they do. Wow, they do get the Raven, so his push is a lot weaker now, and looks like Probe is floating a lot of resources, but he's going to have 1 big warp-in finishing up right now.
Yes, the Phoenix are a really interesting addition. Back as we were talking about back in the day of Wings of Liberty, when this kind of this push was a really big thing. There were a few people who would always try out using Phoenix to try and stop it by trying to kill off the Banshees, because normally this does have a lot of Banshees with it, or using them to try and lift up tanks to at least take the tank fire out of the equation. But these days, as we can see, your Nexus, your Photon Overcharge is just going to be able to keep the Terran out for quite a while. The Photon Overcharge has a range of 13, so it's equal to the tanks. So, I don't know, this is a pretty difficult spot for our Terran player Mind, as he's starting to try and figure out what he's going to do. Continuing to 1 base, we can see back at home he hasn't actually gotten a command center up or anything like that. And, well, Probe's got some Immortals, and they do quite a good job against this composition.
Yeah, looks like Mind has decided to go for it, sieging up his tanks, and the SCVs are trying to get in front there, but the Phoenix come in and lift up 2 tanks, another tank getting focus fired down here, Probe's even coming offline to help tank, and, well, that's a Protoss army right there.
That
Still
definitely
alive.
is a Protoss army. I mean, those Immortals just ripping through the tanks. We saw the Phoenix lifting up the tanks as well, and well, I mean, you see it here, folks. A Probe rush strategy is pretty legit. So you know, give that one a go when you're playing on heavy rain against the Terran. Try and make them mad as well to see if they do some silly things like try a 1-1-1 against you. But yeah. Hope you've all enjoyed this very interesting game. Thank you to Alberta for joining me today, and I'll catch you all next time. Here, as you can see, 47 damage to bio units, and then the 34 damage against other standard targets. His storms have also been wonderful, just spreading them out across the battlefield, doing really, really nicely there. And for Minigun, he's been sticking with a much more